What's going on, Fantasy Chefs? Hope you're doing well. We've got your wire targets for week 5 of the NFL season. Hope your week 4 went well. Hope you were able to pull out a win in those season-long leagues and did okay in DFS as well. If that's your thing, we've got some guys to target here in week 5 that I think could be game changers. First off, we've got your boy David Njoku. I think that Njoku could be a sneaky play, a sneaky pickup if people have dropped him in your league. He is owned right now, ESPN leagues, 68% of leagues, so the ownership is a little high on him, but he might be somebody that got dropped in your league, and I think there's an opportunity there for you to snag him. I like the rapport he showed last week with Baker Mayfield. Mayfield's only going to get better, and he's only going to rely on Njoku more. News out of Cleveland was that Callaway there might see some snap counts, some of his snap counts limited, so maybe some more playing time for Njoku. And I know Callaway plays on the outside, but maybe they go more tight end sets out of Cleveland. We'll see, but I like Njoku as a nice little low-end play pickup. I don't think that the pursuit for him will be all that much this week, so I wouldn't spend a lot of fab on him. But if you are desperate for a tight end, and even if you want to just roll the dice and take a flyer on somebody, I like Njoku for the rest of the season. And next up, somebody I don't necessarily like for the rest of the season, but I like for this week is Alex Smith going up against New Orleans, who is atrocious to quarterbacks right now. And I think that in New Orleans, Alex Smith is a solid stream play. So maybe your quarterback's on a bye, maybe he's injured, maybe you just don't like the matchup that your quarterback has. I like Alex Smith this week. The game in this Washington-New Orleans matchup, it opened at 51 over-under at Vegas, and it is up to 52.5. So, in the matter of 36 hours or so, it's gone up a point and a half. The public seems to think that this game will be high scoring. I think Alex Smith is a nice little plug and play this week. Next up, Aaron Jones. Watch this guy play against Buffalo. I think he's the real deal. He's shifty. He runs hard. He finds holes that aren't there. I think Aaron Jones is the sleeper pick of this week. I think he goes for over 100 yards. He's up against Detroit, who coming into last week was worst against the rush. You saw what Ezekiel Elliott did against Detroit last week. I love Aaron Jones. I know Aaron Rodgers is running around on that knee a little bit, but maybe the Packers get nervous and feel like they can just run the ball up on Detroit. They gave Aaron Rodgers a little bit of a break this week, keep him healthy. I like Jones going forward. Next up, some defenses to stream. I like the Patriots. Going forward in fantasy, for the rest of the season, one of the things I tend to live off of is defenses at home on these Thursday night games, especially if they're facing a team that played on Sunday the week before, which, unless they're on a bye, is pretty much what's happening. They get the Colts this week. The Colts, I know Andrew Luck had a big game, but T.Y. Hilton's banged up. Short week, not quite sure if he's going to play. They might just have him sit out, to be safe. You look at the Colts offense without T.Y. Hilton and also without their starting tight end, Jack Doyle, and this is a rough offense. I mean, Andrew Luck has Ryan Grant and Eric Ebron to throw the ball to. Ebron's a pretty good tight end, but if that's your number one receiver, you've got problems. So I think that the Patriots are an awesome stream option, probably not owned in a lot of leagues, and somebody you can pick up cheap on the wire. Next up, if you miss out on the Patriots, maybe the Patriots are already scooped up, maybe your defense is on a bye. I like San Francisco this week. They go up against Arizona. They opened up in Vegas as 5.5 point favorites, and the over under being really low at 41. So generally, when that's the case, a heavy favorite, over a field goal and a low over under, Vegas believes that Arizona is going to have some issues, and that's really all we've seen so far this year. They can't score. You've got a rookie quarterback in his second game. Look, San Francisco isn't a good defense in and of themselves, but they do have an opportunity here to play a pretty weak team, a weak offense in Arizona. So that does it for the waiver wire picks. Hope that you guys can scoop up some of those defenses, some of those players, plug those into your lineups this week, and hope it earns you a win. Next up, we're going to go over some news and notes of the league here. First up, we've got some news out of Seattle on who is going to replace Earl Thomas. Tedrick Thompson, Roto World here mentions that he's not a very athletic guy. I look for Thompson to struggle against tight ends going forward this season. So if you've got a tight end matchup going up against the Seattle defense, definitely keep an eye out there. You've got Wesley Johnson, just got signed by the Dolphins off of, I believe, waivers. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think just waivers they picked him up. If you look here, Roto World says that he was one of the worst interior linemen this year. Yeah, I don't like Kenyon Drake. He's struggled this year, and this is just another reason to be down on him. Let's see, Will Disley, injured reserve. If you're a Will Disley owner, you probably know that. I don't think that the Seattle tight end backup is worth grabbing. I don't even know who it is, in all honesty. You've got an Adam Vinatieri injury, so if you got Vinatieri on your team, you might want to scoop a kicker off of waivers. I do that sooner rather than later. People with buys are going to be looking at kickers. Nick Chubb looks to get more run in Cleveland, so that's something to look out for. Chubb probably drafted in your league, but if you're high on Chubb, you might want to throw a cheap trade option out. I still think that no matter what, he's going to share carries with Carlos Hyde, but running back is a really, really weak position right now. There's not a lot of guys who are elite, and really even in that 10 to 15 points per game range, obviously depending on the type of league you play in. But Chubb could be a guy worth grabbing. And like I mentioned before, Callaway is going to possibly have his snaps limited. This could just be the coach lighting fire under a player. We've seen this before out of Hugh Jackson. He kind of uses the media to light a spark under his team. That could be the case for Antonio Callaway. So we'll believe it when we see it. Cairo Santos for the Rams. So yeah, if you got Vinatieri, you're looking for maybe a replacement. You've got Santos going to the Rams. They got rid of Ficken, so Santos a good streaming option there. And who knows if Zerline doesn't come back from injury anytime soon, could be somebody to roll with for a couple weeks. Rob Gronkowski absent from practice this week. That's to be expected since they play on Thursday. He probably doesn't practice the entire week. Maybe a walkthrough or something like that. But I don't see them putting him through practice. And I don't know. Maybe he doesn't even play. Maybe Belichick is so confident in the lack of offense for the Colts that he sits Gronkowski. Let's see. Yeah, you got that T.Y. Hilton hamstring. I don't think that he plays. Yeah, Roto World says Frank Reich all but ruled Hilton out. Not looking good for T.Y. Hilton, and therefore not looking good for Andrew Luck. Mark Ingram comes back off of steroid suspension. Look, Alvin Kamara is a beast, but you gotta give take a little bit off of Kamara's thunder here with the return of Ingram. Maybe some goal line carries now go to Ingram. So I don't know. Maybe you throw Kamara and another player at somebody for Todd Gurley. I mean, Kamara's coming off that insane game last week. You might get somebody to bite. Look, I still think Kamara's a top 5, top 7 player overall in fantasy for the remainder of the year, but I think these otherworldly numbers of, 35, 45 fantasy points, I don't see that happening with Ingram in the lineup. I could be wrong, but it's just one of those things. It's not good. I don't think it's good for Kamara. So, all right. On Johnson. Matt Patricia says he believes he's getting enough work. He played just 20 snaps against the Cowboys. I don't know. I saw this guy a couple weeks ago on Sunday Night Football explode. First rusher, I think it's since like 2014, something like that, for the Lions to go over 100 yards. And then Patricia says that 20 snaps is enough for this kid. I mean, they blew, I think, a second-round draft pick on this guy, and I don't know. I'm not sure. Head scratcher for Patricia here. I'm not a believer in the guy, Patricia. I think he probably gets fired in a couple of years, if not sooner. All right. Sean Lee is not expected to return in week 5, so be aware of that. Let's see. You've got the Cowboys here. Let's look at the next couple matchups that they have. Where is the schedule? Here's the schedule. So we've got we got the Houston game this week. We've got Jacksonville. So keep an eye out for Houston. I think Will Fuller is a guy that you can look at maybe a little bit more, possibly DFS. Somebody who goes across the middle. Lamar Miller might be somebody that gets a little extra bonus with Sean Lee out. And then in this Jacksonville game, it looks like Fournette's going to be out for a couple weeks. So TJ Yeldon is definitely somebody that I would target a week from now as well. All right. I think that just about wraps up the Monday news. Looks like we're getting into the recaps here of the Monday night game. But one last note, Le'Veon Bell heard a report today out of ESPN that he's potentially returning in, I think, week 7 or after the week 7 bye. That seems to be Le'Veon Bell's goal. If you have him, you got to hold him. He's got to play this year. I mean, unless the guy fakes injury or he gets real injured, he's going to play. He's got to play in order to get credit for this year. So, look, you drafted him. If you drafted him before the season, you drafted him with probably your second pick, third pick maybe. You got to keep the guy. You got to play him. So, just an update there. Looks like it's going to be week 7 or week 8 for Lev Bell. So the end is near. All right. As always, keep it locked in here. The FantasyChef.net DFS picks coming up later this week. Head over to FantasyChef.net to go ahead and subscribe there. Lineups, you get those. You also get our against the spread picks and a whole lot more. Not only for the NFL, but for the NBA season when that starts. For UFC, we've got the Conor McGregor card coming up, so we'll have our gambling picks there, and we'll also have a DFS lineup for DraftKings as well. Subscriptions start at $4.99, super cheap, less than a cup of Starbucks coffee. So please, if you are liking the content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Go ahead, give us a like on Instagram, Fantasy.Chef, Instagram, FantasyChefWins, and would love for you to go sign up and subscribe at FantasyChef.net. Good luck to everybody in week 5. Hope everybody can pull out a win.